Hey everyone. So I want to speak a little bit about the series Humans on Channel 4. This is British. It's described as a drama. I would describe it as a science fiction drama. And it's based in turn on the Swedish sci-fi drama Real Humans. Basically, it's set in presumably a contemporary setting or at least very near future, um, whereby synthetic humans are being used on a commercial level for all sorts of things like household tasks and so on. Now, the film, or the series, I should say, focuses on a particular family. Um, it stars Colin Morgan, Catherine Parkinson, William Hurt, Gemma Chan. Gemma Chan plays the main android in the show. Emily Barrington, Rebecca Front, Tom Goodman Hill, Danny Webb, Will Tudor, and Theo Stevenson. Just for any British people who may know those actors. Um, I, in recent weeks, since I've been watching this series, have found the whole subject of synthetic technology quite interesting. So I'm going to speak a bit about the series and then about the wider subject. Firstly, I should let you know I'm going to give some spoilers in this video. So if you haven't seen the series so far, maybe stop watching now because I'm going to give some spoilers, perhaps. Um, okay, my verdict so far would be about 6, 7 out of 10. Um, Overall, I'm enjoying it enough to probably watch it again, but the backstory I'm finding a little bit confusing and a little bit hard to get into. The sort of if you've been watching the program over the last two episodes, you'll know that there's a sort of background story going on where there's a young man who's trying to get in touch with this synthetic robot, Anita, played by Gemma Chan. Um, and my own speculation is that he's some sort of whistleblower and he knows something that has been going on in the development of these androids. Um, but there's something that's I'm not quite sure I like the technique they're using. It's a little bit hard to get into that side of it because it keeps interrupting the progress of how Anita the robot, or synthetic human, I should say, is interacting with the family. The family itself, there's an interesting thing occurring. It looks like the male side of the family is either likes her or warms to her, the female side doesn't. So the father initially ordered her, using the pronoun of her, although we are really talking about Sheen here. Um, so the father ordered her, he obviously wanted this model. The teenage son, obviously being a teenage male, he's at a time when he's thinking about girls and so on, and there was a scene in the program tonight where he goes down to touch the robot. You know, she's an attractive female synth. Gemma Chan is a model in real life, apart from an actor. Um, and that's a slightly comical side to it. And then the robot wakes up. She's sort of storing her energy throughout the night. And the whole emphasis about this is that these synthetic humans are designed to look like basically like human beings, except they've got green eyes and they've got no human emotions. But the background to this, or the catch to this, is that this particular synthetic human is acting a little bit more familiar than the others. Now, the mother of the family, it looks like it's somewhat of a disjointed family. The mother seems to be either working all the time or separated or something. Can't quite pick up the storyline going on there, which is part of the appeal, I guess. It makes you wonder. Um, it looks almost like that the man of the house is using the synthetic robot as a replacement for her, but he sees it as a machine. But the mother sort of is very suspicious of her, and there's been a few times she's even challenged the synth, and the whole point was she didn't agree to this, and so she resents this this machine that looks extremely like a woman being around the house and touching her children and doing chores and so on. But there's a few scenes where the daughter is kind of a bit of a rebel. She just does her own thing. She's a bit stuck up. So there's a sort of background of this family going on, and you kind of question what their relationship with this synthetic human is, because each member of the family has a slightly different relationship with it. Um, And it's certainly, from that point of view, it's definitely intriguing. Now, I think that what is happening here, and this is a spoiler perhaps, but my own theory is that this model, Anita, was a normal human before, but she was in a process of becoming a synth. And tonight revealed a few other things. There was another synth that was being used as a sex worker, basically, and she kind of rebelled in tonight's episode because one of her clients was a really sleazy man who kind of wanted her to be all innocent and childlike, and you got the impression that he was a bit of a paedophile or something in the sense of the things he was talking about. And then she rebelled and like attacked him, and then took her own chip out. Um, I'm not quite sure what to think of that. It's an intriguing idea, but the thing about this series is I know that they're trying to get the synths to be as human-like as possible, but the only thing right now that is showing them to be different is the fact that they have no human emotions as such, but in every other sense they're basically like humans. In fact, Gemma Chan even said that she deliberately had to try not to make the stereotype, click type movements that you would expect in a traditional 1950s robot. The interesting thing about this, so it is thought provoking because this is not that distant from reality. It's already being pioneered in Japan, where you have these synthetic robots that are greeting people in hotels. They are programmed to have a limited amount of greetings, so it's not like you can have a proper conversation with it. So the technology at the moment is still developing, but certainly I think it would create an uncanny valley feeling in a lot of people. If you don't know what that means, it's the notion that an android is so human-like that it makes people very uneasy. There's also certainly the phenomenon of sex sex dolls, so to speak, that are again from Japan. Not robots in the same sense, but again it is a human-like figure being used for a human purpose. In the case of simps, it's for domestic tasks. In the case of dolls, it's for predominantly lonely men to well, to keep them company. They can order a really realistic female doll. It even has breasts, it has skin that is made of a material. I'm not sure what the material is, but it's incredibly like human skin. Almost even down to giving it moisture of an orgasm. To the extent that this technology can go to. In terms of moral questions about that, I don't really have a problem with it. I know there would be people who say that for example, these men who are using these robots to objectify what they really want to objectify women. But if you consider that they are a machine, they are in that case a doll, then I really have any moral objection to it. I think if people are, and not just men, if women as well are struggling with loneliness, then who are we to judge them? If they can afford it, if they, who are we to judge them if they're not hurting anyone else? Um, so personally, I've got no moral objection to that. The whole thing about synthetic technology is that I've done a little bit of research on this, and I understand that there's a phenomenon called singularity, which is the point when a synthetic model, an android, starts to get a human consciousness. And that's sort of this dystopian view that humans will become slaves to their own creations in the future. And there is a slightly dark side to that. But in terms of the technology, I um, I can definitely see it having advantages and disadvantages. At the moment, I would say the advantages maybe marginally outweigh the disadvantages. The advantages would be that traditional jobs that no person really wants to do, such as waitering, such as street sweeping. This isn't to talk down to anyone is doing or does those jobs, because I've been a waiter myself. I know how unpleasant it can be. In those situations, you can have androids performing the roles that people just don't want to do. Of course, the danger with that is then people will become complacent, and all jobs will end up being done by androids, and then it kind of makes us. I mean, the whole point about work is you you strive in a particular endeavor that needs to be done to make an income to get by. That's the whole purpose of work. But this could actually bring about serious debate about the role of work in the modern world, and I don't think that's I don't think anything should be off the table in terms of debate um, about the role that we as a human society play. And the fact of the matter is, there are millions and millions and millions of people around the world that hate their job, and being in a job that you don't like does take a big chunk away from human contentment. Say someone's working half their day and they're in a job they hate, and then at home they're brooding on it, then it really is a quality of life infraction, I would argue. So I don't think it is radical or extreme to at least discuss these ideas, at the very least discuss them. Um, the downside, of course, it would presumably create higher unemployment if machines are taking jobs. So there's nothing simple about this. There's a lot of questions to be asked. But just because there's a speculation about what it will mean doesn't, in my view, mean it should be off the table. I believe it can be progressive for humanity if it is done in the right way. Another danger, though, would be if these models are so human-like and children are being taught that they're just a machine, will that then be damaging for bringing up children to have human empathy with others? And will it actually create a generation of brats who kind of become lazy and treat these androids as slaves and that sort of thing? Um, it has been pointed out that I think they discussed this during a question and answer session with the cast that it creates uncomfortable questions about, for example, how domestic servants are treated in some parts of the world. Um, because it kind of creates a question, well, if you could do it, would you? In other words, if you could treat an android like a slave, would you? Now, obviously, the difference is an android is a machine, a human servant is a human being with feelings. So that's an obvious difference. So we couldn't really talk about human rights in the sense of a synthetic. That would be a bit ridiculous, clearly, but it does make you wonder if you could treat it badly just because it's a machine, would you? Um, Bearing in mind, in human history, we've had slavery, we've had human beings treating each other in an appalling way. Um, so there is a lot of questions around this subject that I think do make for an interesting discussion. In terms of the show Humans, I think it's pretty good, but I can't quite get into that backstory, and I think they're spending too much time on it. I'd like them to spend more time on the actual phenomenon of these machines interacting with human beings. I think they're spending too much time on the background. I mean, it isn't just the Gemma Chan or Anita storyline with the family. There's also an elderly scientist who helped to pioneer the program. He's just got a new synth who's kind of like a very strict nanny type figure, and he doesn't like it one bit. So it is exploring that, to be fair. But I find that aspect more interesting than this kind of whole pursuit backstory. I'm sure it has significance, but I just can't get into it. Um, I'll probably still watch the series. I'm certainly interested enough to continue watching it, but I think they're spending a little bit too much time on that backstory. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts about synthetic technology. Can this be useful for humankind? Will it be detrimental? Will it kill off human empathy? Will it kill off human endeavor? Is there a risk that these machines could be developed so much that they do get too powerful? Or could it be progressive for humanity? I mean, I think we have to look at the positive side as well. I mean, it makes sense that as we move more and more into the future, we do try to think about what could be progressive for humanity. So at the very least, I think it's completely apt for discussion. Um, so could this be done in a way that would benefit humanity? Um, a lot of interesting questions. So I do give the series credit for bringing awareness of the subject. Um, and I've seen interviews with Gemma Chan. She says it's very difficult playing this role because on one hand they're designed to be very human-like, but they have to completely lack empathy. So in other words, when the mother and the daughter are, let's face it, being very bitchy towards her, she has to just kind of take it. And but then it makes me think of the way domestic servants are treated in some parts of the world where they can't defend themselves, and those raise interesting questions. So let me know your thoughts on synthetic technology.